Hello and welcome to Any Means Necessary, the information design podcast where we explore past and present design problems by any means necessary. My name is Shadi Swaydan, and today I'm joined by my fellow classmates.
Hi, I'm April.
Hi, I'm Asa.
Hi, I'm Caitlin.
Hi, Kirk here.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Hey, I'm Wyatt.
Awesome. And today we will be discussing all problems, experiences, and tips relating to advertisement design, which would include thoughtful visual design layout, information architecture, and of course the client versus you. Before we begin, we'd like to remind everyone listening that we are in no way experts on the topics being discussed, but rather speak on our personal and collective experiences in the information design program at Mount Royal University and beyond. With that being said, I will pass the mic over to April, who will begin our discussion on advertisement design.
All right, so welcome everyone. Hope your night is going well. So I wanted to talk about advertising design in particular, just because I deal with it a lot on a daily basis at work, and I know that there's a lot of components of information design that are involved in advertising, and there's also various different ways you can advertise through like posters and campaigns, and it's not just one single idea that you can put in advertisement. So I kind of just wanted to get your guys' feedback, ideas, create a conversation from it. Yeah, if you guys have any input on advertising design, that would be awesome.
Advertisement design, like I know I've always wanted to get into advertisement design and so on and so forth, right? Or at least be involved with the marketing department and such. And so how do you use your information design knowledge in that field, actually? Just curious.
A lot of it is related to layout. So information architecture is a big one. Kind of just organizing information, images, or even organizing limited information in images. And then also there's components of typography in there, deciding what looks best for the client or the brand or what they're trying to convey to the audience or the community in a sense. But yeah, there's a lot of smaller components to it as well, but information architecture and typography are the biggest ones for sure.
Oh, that sounds excellent. Like, are you actually part of the process of strategizing the marketing trajectory, I guess would be the word?
That kind of goes into the client versus you topic, where they kind of have a vision of what they want to do, and it kind of leads into, problems or barriers where they have a certain idea and they give you specific information to go on to the ad, and a lot of times it's a lot of information that they want on that one specific 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or bigger, but a lot of times they want you to use everything that they give you, but in a sense you can't really, because it's too much information.
Yeah, and as a designer, that's when you get to have a little bit of a pushback. I know in my experiences on that sort of stuff, for example, I had a lot of type that I had to squeeze on, similar experience that you just described. And you kind of go back to them and just ask if they can edit their verbiage a little bit, and usually it works out pretty well.
Exactly.
I actually had a really unique experience with this at working at Hockey Canada, because every advertisement that they sent out, they also had to put it out in French as well. So, and that always added like so much more text. So in a matter of like creating the exact same advertisement, but in French or any other language, whatever it is, that was like a huge barrier for me. It was actually like I could send it off to the translators or whatever, but anytime I actually had to put it into the exact same document, it was always like a half a page longer, and it was such a disaster.
And that's kind of the barrier with reaching your audience too. Like if you have way too much on it, I don't really know if anyone's gonna understand what you're trying to get at or bother to read it.
For like reaching the audience, this might go beyond the scope of what we wanted to talk about, but even just like identifying who the audience is and how you're going to reach them. You know, whether if it's online, I find that it's a little bit easier because you can add like indexed terms like keywords so that search engines can find your audience. And if it's on social media, it's a lot easier to track as well. But for something that's print, like, do you have a strategy for how you might track something like that?
As of right now, not really. It's more so the company I work for. So they kind of just get me to do ads and then I send them back and, you know, we revise as we need to be. But not too much in that realm. I know we do a lot of digital stuff as well, so we do have that kind of stuff for digital.
Yeah, are there any other issues similar to you know, terminologies and things like that in the field, April?
I would say another one would be basically just not overwhelming the audience. Like I said before, I get a lot of clients who want a ton of stuff on their ads, so just be mindful of who's going to be seeing your stuff and knowing how they're going to react to it, depending how much you have on it.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that as well. Like, anytime I make an advertisement for the bike shop who I currently work for, it'd be like identifying a main objective and like trying to get that across as simply as possible. Because, you know, most people don't actually read anything, right? Like we learned in information architecture, they just want to scan. So making something, you know, as easy to digest as possible.
Yeah, do you go through the whole persona process and everything with these adverts, April?
It depends what we're doing. Like I work with a lot of lotteries, so they're kind of aimed at a lot of people, maybe in like a certain area. So we don't necessarily need personas. In some cases, they're aimed towards older people, so we might kind of look into that more. Yeah, but there's not too much along with that. More so when we do branding and all that, but yeah.
I think just another issue that we've definitely talked about in class a lot is like clients wanting to fill up, like you said, April, like all the space, but like I feel like for a design it's like integral that you have like a sufficient amount of white space. So yeah, I think that's a problem people run into a lot when designing ads.
Yeah, I think it's really tough to just pinpoint that strongest message on an advert, I would say. You know, you have perhaps a tagline, like, I don't know, I'm thinking, well, you're doing lottery. Oddly enough, I had some lottery experience, but that was in video. So I had a large time frame to engage the audience, right? So we kind of speak differently in videography, I guess, or cuts and edits and special effects or whatever in my previous career. And, you know, I had a good I would say 10 seconds for a logo reveal. And when you call people in on video, trying to attract them, it takes them 2 seconds actually to process actually what's going on the screen. Now there are studies where they kind of flash images up and people can kind of see them. We've all seen those psychology tests or whatever exams. But when it comes to adverts and you want to be the most clear, yeah, there's kind of a 2 second rule there. So I hope that makes sense what I was kind of talking about, but is there sort of a similar technique when it comes to print?
I would say yeah, but it's kind of up in the air. Like it's kind of hard to say, but
Okay, so to be more clear, like how do you decide or determine the tagline? Again, we were talking about having too much text, but then how do you just grab them right away?
well, are we referring to like print design and stuff?
Yeah, yeah, print design, or again, just your experience. Like, so if there is a tagline, so you know, buy a lottery ticket now,
Yeah.
in so many words, right? And so how do you get them? How do you snag them?
Well, again, they provide us with the information, but we do try to play around with the sizing of everything, making the most important parts of the ad what we want them to see most, so make them the biggest. Like the tickets, we'd make the ticket pricing, we'd make the biggest. Buy tickets now would be pretty big. We'd also make the prizes fairly big as well. So what's included in the prizes would be fairly big. That kind of just attracts them into what kind of they're buying the tickets for. That's mostly what we do. But also tying into like the kind of going back to the kind of aspect of catching someone with one like short slogan or saying kind of goes into what we did for Ben's class. I think it was visualizing information, and we did the poster campaign, kind of something like that where it really catches your eye on, and it, not so much what I do, but a lot of advertisements can touch upon serious topics. Exactly, yeah, like logo pathos, ethos. Yeah, just like the simple images, straight to the point, slogans is what really can catch someone's eye.
As a classic hierarchy, I think that's one of the things I got out of information architecture. I really enjoyed that. And I shifted a lot of that knowledge that we got in that class. It was definitely Brian's class. And yeah, we did the information architecture. We had a lot of fun with that, on websites and, policy documents and all that sort of stuff. But it's odd how I think I became more well-rounded after the typography class. Again, just focusing on what makes that big impact and, understanding the what are all the little fancy terms with type, the ligatures and the kerning and all that sort of stuff. It just really plays a role in gathering your audience's attention.
Basically, what a lot of new designers and developing designers, especially once they get into like the workforce, like mistakes that they make is definitely, as April talked about earlier, is like branding and like the identity of like your clients or customer or campaign, whatever it is. And it's actually like getting the correct visual, but also content that actually like drives their brand along with the advertisement in terms of like having the right voice and aesthetic. Like you see a lot of advertisements that's like giant, bulky, bold, but it's for like a new yoga studio or something like that, right? And it's just doesn't like fit. And it's all about that, finding that balance between appropriateness and flashiness, essentially, right? So like there's a lot to be said in terms of finding the correct voice for whatever your campaign, that comes back around to the purpose of the advertisement in the first place.
Yeah, and I think something to mention is also like most companies will have or should have like a style guide. Whereas April, it sounds like you don't have to write the copy, but to ensure that you have consistency throughout ad campaigns so that it has that brand recognition, there's probably some style guide that tells you, what syntax you have to use and the importance of following that.
Yeah, it's interesting. And almost going back to, we were talking about how advertising is different in different parts of the world. So for my internship, for example, I actually did graphic design for, I have a couple of friends in Pakistan who are actors and producers, and they had a movie coming out, and I had the opportunity to do the graphic design for that movie. But it was interesting. The movie was it was a sadder movie, I'd say. It was basically, it was about these people from Kalasha. It's a kind of a district. It's called the Chitral district in Pakistan. And it's these remote people who kind of completely disassociated with society. They kind of do their own thing. And the young boy in the movie, the main character, he ends up finding out that his mother has cancer. And since there's no doctors around, they have to make their way to Pakistan and basically find a cure for her and make her better. But the main thing, after hearing that, I wanted to go with a more sad, kind of emotional standpoint when it came to the advertising. And I had to do a range of things. So I had to do character posters, billboards, the actual graphic design movie itself. And when I kind of approached them in a way that I'd create a style guide and create this kind of consistency and kind of create this emotional impact, it kind of took them by surprise. They didn't actually expect that. And so it ended up actually being less of emphasis on the actual name of the movie, which was Kalasha. And it was actually more on the image itself. And that's something I told them that we should probably focus on so that it drags them in. You know, someone sees that driving by maybe or walking by, they see it on the billboard, they see a sad scene of the boy looking up and praying to God. Maybe it'll catch their attention versus, you know, just the name. And so that was a very interesting way to kind of deal with advertising across the world as well.
It sounds like a cool experience, Shadi.
Thank you. It was. Yeah. I learned a lot from it for sure, especially with the way that they do things over there. I mean, processes are always different across the world. I'd say here it's a lot more, you know, we have a standard to live up to, I'd say for sure. And it's an interesting way they process, the way they go about doing things.
Oh, it's a good point to be made that there's a lot of cultural boundaries, especially in terms of like how people ingest information and especially like pop culture and everything too.
Yeah, we would have learned that in Glenn's class. You know, different cultures will interpret things differently. Good point.
And also in relations to Glenn's class, actually, I just recalled that language use with the marketing and sales team when I worked at the tech company is different, varying from how would you present this information and market it and advertise it to the sales team compared to the marketing and sales material that you give to the engineers. Because the way the engineers read and the language they use is very different. You know, certain details, certain, you know, for example, if you were to talk closer about, reserves and all that stuff, you know, that would be for the engineers. But for the sales team, you know, we just say, this is a more efficient way of keeping track of your timeline and budget. And they're like, oh, okay. But then for the engineers, it would be a totally different thing. So even between different disciplines, I feel each discipline has its own different culture almost. So each discipline has like a different way of how they use language.
Yeah, which I think kind of slides into approaches and tools. Now, it's been a long time since I've been involved with advertising. April, do you have any spicy information, insider information as to techniques they use or different tools or approaches that they take with their adverts?
Not really. We use InDesign, which is not too exciting. I have learned a lot of like tips and tricks on how to do like certain things in InDesign. Like there's like a line and stuff I didn't know about previously, which really helped, but nothing too fancy. We use a lot of Photoshop. Yeah.
Yeah, just the general Adobe stuff, huh? You're using those particular tools. That's great. You know, Wyatt, this kind of takes me back in time a little bit in one of our assignments where, you know, I think you learned a valuable lesson. InDesign. What is InDesign? You know, you don't use it to draw pictures, do you?
InDesign is an excellent platform for creating illustrations. Not Illustrator. It's very misleading. You can actually do it in InDesign. It's frowned upon, but you can do it.
I don't know. For anyone's listening, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend that for anybody. You know, I think it's
Kelsey would definitely say that's a big no. That's a no.
I agree with Kelsey.
Yeah. Don't design things in InDesign. Just do layout.
I also realized that most marketing or advertising teams, maybe with the exception of like pure agency companies like Critical Mass and all that, like with, for example, like those oil and gas or tech companies, the in-house marketing team, most of them, while they know how to use InDesign and Photoshop, many actually do not use Illustrator or know how to use Illustrator. From what I have seen from my experience, it does differ from place to place, but that's what I noticed. So knowing how to use Illustrator and going into an in-house marketing team or advertising team in those big corporate companies is actually quite an advantage from what I have experienced. As I said, it might vary from company to company.
Yeah, and I don't know, April, if your like scope goes in your job goes towards like email advertisements, but I've recently just learned how to use, it's called Ascend 360, and they track all your like advertisement analytics and all that, and you can design, it's kind of like a plug and play kind of deal, but you can design some really cool email assets through there too.
Yeah, we have something like that as well. I don't think we can necessarily create email assets, but we can like upload them onto there and then create an email, and then they track it and everything, give us insights and data on who's viewing it and who opened it and who trashed it and stuff like that.
That's interesting. I think I might even have to learn stuff about that. Like I never really was part of the email campaign portions of any marketing campaigns whatsoever. And yeah, I think I would have to learn some of those tools as well. And it's interesting, you know, and again, you know, I remember one of the first things we learned in this information design program is that, yeah, there's an extreme large amount of tools out there that we can use to design and craft our imagery and things like that. And you know, I've been experimenting on my iPad. Everyone kind of knows me as the iPad guy, I know. But you know, there's this new software out there, and I really like it. I think it's called, what is it called again? I'll have to look it up or whatever. But it's almost like a Photoshop and Illustrator. And that really bothers me that I don't know it off the top of my head. But basically, I use tools like that to do some designs. It's just trying to see if I could scooch over. It's a little bit cheaper than the Adobe package, things like that. But also with tool use, I was also thinking about a lot of like maybe the ethnographic studies and things like that. So, you know, I really did enjoy using that tool. And I know it was early off in our information design path. It was one of those charts. It's an ethnographic chart where we fill it in. So I remember I don't know if it was with you guys or who I was with, but we went to Timmy's on campus there, and we just studied everything that was happening around us. You know, I was just enjoying a coffee, and I was watching people watching, not in a creepy way, haha. But you know, I wrote everything down. The posters had these particular adverts on them. You know, the room felt warm because of the lighting. You know, someone dropped change and they picked it up. You know, someone had to rifle through their backpack, and we wrote it all down, I guess is what I'm saying. And it was neat to study or people watch just so we could maximize the impact of our messaging through our design.
That was Melena's class, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I think it was. I know it was a sprinkler room class anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember having to like go through, and like one of the pieces of in-class material that we were shown was like somebody spent like some absurd amount of hours inside like a public library and like literally just like digested like the actual inner workings of like everything that was going on inside that small space, and like how people interacted with the advertisements, and like wayfinding and stuff ties into that, but like how people actually interacted with like the in venue displays and the advertisements there. Kind of cool.
Yeah, and Kirk, I think that ethnographic research form that you're talking about, was it the poems where it's like people, objects, environment, messages, and services, and you make observations through those categories?
You know, I remember you mentioned this last time we were having a discussion, Caitlin,
Yeah.
and I didn't experience this class actually. I should have maybe taken that. I think it was a Milena class that you said you experienced on that, and
yeah,
I didn't take
and
that one.
well, that worksheet was from Kelsey's class when we did our like the visual identity systems, where we would go to a neighborhood and like kind of absorb that. I forget the word for it, but it's like that third space, and then you just sit there and then you observe all the things around you.
Oh, you're gonna have to share your notes on that one, because I don't know.
Okay.
It sounds really interesting actually. Because
Really
I remember just that one chart, and I think we all kind of focused on that. I believe it was a first year thing. Maybe it was Melena's class, but yeah, it sounds like she went down deeper avenue with the poems and acronym, pardon me. And so that's pretty cool.
So with relations to this, I just realized how important all of Ben's and Kelsey's classes are. For example, document production. When Ben was going through with us, spotting the difference in color and making sure your color was in, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's supposed to be RGB for print, CMYK for print, RGB for online.
No. What did you get? Okay, so CMYK for print, because again, always think about your HP printer. That's the best way I can always say it. You know, you get that 4-color ink cartridge, if that makes sense. Well, 3-color ink cartridge coupled with black. But yeah, RGB for the screen, for websites, things like that. So in my experience, that's something that's a very common mistake. I'm assuming you steer clear from those problems all the time, April, when you comb through your final projects.
Yeah, it's definitely a big thing, since I do a lot of web work too. You just gotta make sure, because then they get mad at you if you don't have a CMYK document. But it's just a matter of keeping track of that.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed in InDesign. I think there's a checker. You did mention InDesign. So yeah, it usually is a CMYK tool. I would argue, but yeah, you could still do, of course, RGB PDFs and things like that. So it's not strictly that, but if you got any outgoing print materials and things like that, it does give you a little bit of a warning for certain links of images. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I was kind of curious, April, about the outcomes or the aftermath of a lot of your adverts that you push out there. Do you ever get the satisfaction to see your audience reaction?
Not so much like their reaction, but there are times where we see higher ticket sales or our lotteries sell out. I think in other situations where there's not a lottery or anything like that, I think just kind of seeing that your customers are maybe buying something, or that they saw advertised, or they're just taking action on a problem that they've seen advertised, something like that.
So it's all metrics based, it sounds like.
Yeah, that kind of goes along with the email thing too. Like we can kind of see who kind of looks at it, which is kind of a smaller component, but more so just, I guess tracking who, like not necessarily who buys tickets, but like how many tickets are bought, and it kind of correlates with the advertising component.
Well, which makes me genuinely curious now. So is there a specific age demographic that you guys target?
Again, it depends, but I don't know. I'm guessing you guys don't buy lottery tickets, so it's
no.
I would say like between 40 and beyond.
40 and beyond.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'm probably in that age demographic that should start buying lottery tickets now, huh? Well, come on, Wyatt. I know you're buying those 50-50 tickets when it's hockey night.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I also buy lotto tickets like every week.
So you should target Wyatt. You should bring Wyatt in as a sample case that says, hey, I buy lottery tickets and I'm not even close to 40 yet.
Make him buy tickets.
I was going to talk about like quantifying and analyzing results. Like it's kind of up to the advertiser to decide what is considered success. Like April selling lottery tickets, obviously success would be measured through the amount of tickets that you sold, but like there could be other considerations for success, like maybe like site visits or like conversion rates, stuff like that as well for online advertisement.
That just makes me think of like social media advertisements too, in terms of like measuring like how many people like your post, and like it's fully integrated into like digital design advertisements, but like you can measure how many people like save the post or like the post or resent the post, anything like that.
With all this being said, it's actually very interesting how everything that we have mentioned here, as much as it sounds like we did not, it's something that we learn only when we are out in the workforce. We actually do learn content curation in Gil's class. We also learn how to analyze and design accordingly to your demographic with a combination of Glenn's class and Kelsey and Ben's class. Uses of negative space, types of color to use, color combinations. So there's actually a lot of classes that prepares us really well in the information design degree that for this space of advertisements, and actually equips us really well to be prepared if anybody out there were to be thinking of pursuing marketing or advertisements in this industry.
I think that pretty much everything that we do in our program like just sets you up and like gives you appropriate mindset and like common sense understanding like what works and what doesn't, and like you're constantly like you're graded on that too, so like we're constantly being given feedback on like what works and what doesn't and what's a faux pas and what you should stick true with and carry on with.
Yeah, you certainly get a good sense for that over the 4 years in our program. Like you said, the faux pas and all that sort of stuff. We have a lot of fun with those. Arthur, I always kind of get on your case about the color beige, but then Caitlin found a way to make it work. For instance, so it's you can't be dismissive or any of that sort of stuff. And I remember we learned a little bit about critiques and things like that, right? And how to properly deliver those sort of things. But I don't know. I don't think I deliver them properly to you, Arthur, so much, do I?
Yeah, I think that brings to mind like when we first started info design. I think one of the profs told me they're like, literally, like if you just want to sum up the whole program, it's basically just like smart marketing. You know what I mean? Like well-informed marketing. And I think that's kind of like, I guess it brings it down to like, yeah, advertising and all that. That's like our specialty.
So I'm dying to know, April, it sounds like you've done numerous of these adverts by this time, marketed out on numerous campaigns and things like that. Any insight on one of your favorites and any reasons why?
I would say there's one, it's like a summer-based lottery, and I really just like it because it's summer. That's really it. It's nice to be able to create for them, so.
Spoken like a true designer.
Yeah, wait until you get into the field of, working with developers as a designer, and that's a classic conundrum, to put it lightly.
I do too.
Oh, so yeah, so you're the designer on board. Always remember that you know best. That's my advice.
Yeah, you took the courses, you got the degree. What's that?
So the developers will say the same thing.
Yeah.
Right, you caught me on that classic exchange, I guess you would call it. It's a lot of fun out there, and it's what you get to look forward to, though. I think what makes you a great information designer, as you guys all practice. I mean, I'm practicing as well. I think I've had a lot of experience, yes, but I know I got a lot of I guess adjustments to that experience that I'll take into the field with me in the future through this program. And I like to be friendly with everybody. I don't know if you guys got that about me or not, but I just try to see if I can bridge the gaps and things like that. I always want to see if I can be that problem solver in the room, that problem oriented thinker, and see if I can make everyone happy all at once, right? And I think that's a classic, almost like an art house or a studio kind of environment where everyone kind of is for lack of better terms, they're cross with each other as you gotta get into the deadlines and the stress and all the iterations that we have to go through for a successful campaign. And then at the end, everyone's kind of popping champagne corks at the end when they see a successful ad campaign do its work, so to speak.
So it's really good to know that information design, throughout this 4 to 5 years, we are constantly equipped with multiple skills that are always really very useful for almost any variety of jobs, things, and most importantly, it teaches us like the thought processes in how to approach certain issues.
And I think especially as information designers, one of the big things that we're taught in this program is empathy. So I mean, when a lot of people think about advertising in general, it's kind of like no one really wants to get involved in that kind of realm, and a lot of people are kind of have this negative notion towards advertising in general. But one thing we differ in information design is, like Arthur said, we're well equipped to handle a majority of a landscape of jobs, if you will. We talked about graphic design. We talked about April handling lottery tickets, Wyatt doing his work in Hockey Canada and dealing with different languages that we had to approach. But the one overarching thing that was above all of this was empathy. And that's one of the main things that differentiates us to other designers around the world. But with that being said, looks like we are out of time for today. But thank you all for participating, and thank you all at home for tuning in today. We hope you've learned about how to become the best designer you can be. We encourage you to join us next week and apply these topics in your profession, of course, by any means necessary. Thank you.